CMCQ family and friends, as I mentioned 2 weeks ago, the leaders and I are working on a strategic plan for our church. We began by identifying three actual core values. The first value was missions. We realized that as we looked at our missions at our church budget, matter of fact, we realized that 1/3 of our church budget was going towards missions. And so we supported and valued missions. Another value that we identified that was an actual core value was fellowship. And that's one of the values actually that's identified in Acts chapter 2 and verses 42 through 47. Another value that we identified was teaching. We are very strong as a church in the teaching of the Word, and everything that we do is word-based, word-centered, and that's a value of our church, one of the very strong values that we have, along with fellowship and missions. Fellowship is simply the meeting together for intimate spiritual community, and we definitely love to meet together and to fellowship in every forum, in every context, in every situation. So those are our three actual core values: missions, fellowship, teaching. But then we also looked at some aspirational values, and we discovered that we came to an agreement that there's 4 aspirational values that we would like to add to our 3 existing core values. The first value was evangelism. Now, I know we are very strong on missions. However, missions is the supporting in prayer and financially of missionaries and missions work, but we don't actually do evangelism as we should, or local missions as we could call it. So we're adding evangelism as an aspirational core value so that we will no longer just support missions through prayer and financial support, but we'll actually do missions, local missions and foreign missions. But we want to actually do it, be hands-on engaged. So evangelism is one of our aspirational core values. Actually, evangelism is the flip side of missions. So the two of those values are actually really one value. Missions will have a local expression and an overseas and regional, national expression. So we want to do local missions through evangelism. And then another aspirational value that we want to add is that we will become a multi-ethnic congregation. We believe that Acts chapter 13, verses 1 through 3, reflects the fact that the church as a community should reflect the diversity of its local community. The church of Antioch in Syria, Antioch of Syria, was a diverse community of Gentiles, and the church leadership and the church membership reflected that diversity. So we believe that an aspirational value we should add is that the church should be multi-ethnic, reflecting the diversity of our local community. That's the reason why we are in the midst of doing a demographic study, a basic demographic study of our community in the zip codes 11361 and 11364 to see what is the makeup of our community and to pray about some ways that we can meet the members of this local community and reach them for Christ as part of our evangelism thrust as well. But that would be reflecting a multi-ethnicity of our community. Another aspirational value we want to add is to be multi-generational. Now, unconsciously, we were kind of thinking about that, and it was something that we've always thought it was something that you would do, but we never actually consciously stated that and pursued that. So we are committed to becoming a multi-generational church, and we think that that reflects Titus chapter 2, verses 1 through 10 fully. That the church was always supposed to be multi-generational, young, old, and in between. That's the reason why we took the bold step of hiring a youth director and our brother Domingo, because we wanted to begin to bridge the gap between young and old and in between middle age, like myself. But that's because the church is supposed to be multi-generational. We don't think that any church that only reaches one demographic or one age range is biblical. Now, a church should not be a Gen X church. A church should not be a boomer church. In other words, the church shouldn't be full of all people of one age group. It should encompass the whole spectrum, young, old, and in between. Now, there's one last value that we have as an aspirational value, and that's prayer. And the prayer that we're talking about is not personal prayer. There are many people in our congregation who are prayer warriors, who pray unceasingly. But as a corporate body, we want to be involved and engaged in enduring corporate prayer. As in Acts chapter 12 and verse 5, where you see Peter had been imprisoned by Herod, who had just recently had James killed, and the church gathered together and they prayed. And I am talking about real enduring, urgent prayer. That's the kind of prayer we want to be constantly engaged with. Even you see in Acts chapter 2 and verses 42, you'll see there was also another example of this enduring corporate prayer, when the believers gathered together in prayer and fellowship and breaking of bread. So that's the kind of prayer that we want to be involved in. So those are our 4 aspirational values. So that really brings us to 6 values that we've identified for our church. Missions, which has a local and a international aspect to it. And I'm not talking about supporting missions, I'm talking about actually doing missions, which is evangelism in its truest sense. Fellowship, teaching, being multi-ethnic, multi-generational, and prayer. That's our 6 values. So now we come to the next step in the strategic plan process, which is developing a mission statement. The mission statement tells us what the church is supposed to be doing until Jesus comes. It is a statement telling us where the church is going. And so we are going to be working on that. That's the next step. And as leaders in the church, along with myself, we are going to be working on the mission statement beginning the end of this month. I believe our next meeting, on our training meeting, is for February the 24th or 25th. It's a Thursday. So keep us in prayer for this, and join with us as we continually repeat, reiterate, and focus on these 6 values and the beginning of the development of our mission statement. And we are looking forward to the journey. Thank you for listening. Lord bless you.